So we are talking about automation interview questions today. So generally, whenever you have manual plus automation kind of requirement or job description, right? The interviewer may ask about programming related question. They can ask about the framework related question as well, right? And some other question. Now the thing is how to knowing something is a different thing and explaining it in a better way is a different thing, right? So this comes with, you know, practice as well, and this comes with when you talk about it, right? When you explain it in a better way, when you explain it in a simple way, right? Then you can, you know, pass any interview. It's like this, right? It's not about knowing something. You are very good in technical sense, but if you are not able to explain it, then, you know, it's difficult to pass through one interview. Okay, so I'll talk about the framework part first, right? So the thing is, this question is very common. Let they say explain your automation framework, right? So when somebody is asking this question, don't be in hurry. First thing, okay? When somebody is asking, explain your automation framework. I'm putting some note also here. So that I'll tell you what are the points you should discuss then. If somebody will ask you, explain your automation framework, then don't be in hurry to just start that we are using Selenium and we do Chrome testing and then we are using Java, Maven. So, you know, it will create confusion basically. So when somebody is asking you about the framework, that means they want to know whether you have seen it properly or not, whether you are maintaining your framework properly or not, or whether you were part of designing the framework or not, right? In that sense, they are asking. But when they're asking you explain the automation framework, take your time. Okay. So first thing which you should talk about is what type of project you have. That you should just in one line you should say whether it is UI web testing you are doing, right, in your project. I'm not saying you have to explain about your project. I'm saying in the testing sense you have to tell them that okay, I'm doing UI web testing, UI web functional check, or is it API, is it performance testing, what you do. Basically you have to explain that what kind of problem we have which we are solving through our automation, right? So that they will get an idea, okay, you are doing API automation, right? First thing you should say. Second, you should say about what technology you are using. So when we say what technology, it comes, you know, it comes with a lot of things, right? So here it will come like programming tool, programming language, um, then what tool you are using, what is the build tool, what is for the source code management, okay, whether you're using GitHub, Git or Bitbucket or whatever you are using, okay, that you should explain. And then reporting. So not reporting mechanism, just reporting tool, what reporting tool you are using, and is there any integration with Slack channel or some other thing, right? Communication, how somebody will get to know that your execution is completed. That part I'm saying. Are you connecting to your database? What sort of database you are using? That's it, right? So I'll give you, let me note down everything and then I'll give you a proper answer how to explain your framework, right? So what type of project you have, what sort of technology you are using in your framework, then connect all the dots, right? Connect the dots. Like um, you can create a picture. So better way is create a picture that, see, this is our code, this is what we are using, right? So now the time is connecting the dots. Okay. So how all these components which you have said about the technology and tools you are using, now you should connect the dots that we are using this thing, right? And then you should say about how you are executing it, right? How you are executing it, and how it is helping to reduce manual effort. So generally, what people does is they directly start with, we had 500 test cases and then we automated it, and then now our execution time is 50 minutes, right? Something like that. But that's not a right way to start about the framework uh, you know, related question, because the question is something else, right? They will ask you if they are interested to know about how much effort you are saving, they will ask you. But it's better you explain it at the end so that it will be a complete cycle of like what was our problem statement, right? What was our problem statement, how we resolved it, and then how it is going right now, right? What are the challenges? You should talk about challenges also at the end. Okay, don't talk about the challenges at the very start. If you will talk about, we are facing some weight related issues, or page is getting stuck somewhere, or we have some reporting issues, if you explain it at the very first point, it will be difficult. So we are not going in the right way if you are doing it that way. Okay, so this is the way you should explain. Now if somebody will ask me, hey, tell me how, explain your automation framework, right? So I'm just suggesting you, right? I'm not saying this is the perfect answer, I'm just suggesting you. Okay, so how I will explain it, I'll tell you. Okay, so we have our project where we are doing UI functional check. We do have API testing also. So we are using a framework where we can include API test automation as well as the UI automation as well. So we did some kind of POC with different tools. Our leaders and managers did those kind of POCs. I was also involved into that. And then we came up with a solution that we will be using Selenium and Java technologies to create the framework, right? So in terms of tools and technology, what we are using is, as I said, we are using Java programming. We are using Selenium as a jar or the helping libraries to do our UI automation. We are using Maven for the project structure, and as a build life cycle also we are using Maven, and our code is there in the GitHub and Bitbucket. For the reporting part, we are using TestNG, um, and we have integrated our reporting to the Slack channel also, so that at the end, when the execution is done, we send that report to the Slack and emails also, right? We send it our report to the email. In some of the cases, we are going to the database also to fetch some detail and put it into the user interface, or vice versa, where we are done with a particular test and then we want to go to the database and check about whether the data is stored in the database or not, right? So let me draw a picture how our framework is. So I'm opening Paint. In the interview, you can use paper and pencil basically. So you should explain that in the middle, I have my, let's say, code repository, which is there in Bitbucket. Okay. And how we are creating our code is, let's say, what are the technologies and how we are making the code. I'll explain it here. And here I'll talk about the build part, how we are executing it. So here, let's say this is our code, actual code which we are developing day to day. So we can say here is our test cases, right? And here is the how we are doing reporting part or execution, both the things. Okay, let's talk about it. So for the test cases part, as I said, that we are using Selenium with TestNG annotations we are using. We are using Eclipse IDE, or if you're using IntelliJ, you should explain about you're using IntelliJ. Let's say you are using Eclipse. And our code, whenever we are writing, we are putting into the code repository, Bitbucket. And here we are using Jenkins. We are using Jenkins. And how Jenkins is working is there are jobs which fetches the latest code from the code repository. It fetches the code from the code repository and it executes it on the Jenkins server or in some machine. And it once it is executed, it shows the result. It shows the result in a particular location, and we show that result into the Slack channel also. So we push the result to the Slack channel and we send the emails to the stakeholders about our execution. So this is the basic detail about how our test automation framework is working. But if we want to talk about more about how the code itself is, what kind of design model we are using. So we are using page object model, where the web pages are, we are keeping it different from its elements and the function. So how page object works is, let's say I have 5 pages to test, right? 5 pages to test. We can make 5 different um, test classes and the pages, where in the test class we will keep all the test cases related to different pages. So there will be test classes and there will be pages according to that. And in the test classes we handle how we will move to different pages, right? So in the pages we have all the elements. So when we say elements, these are the web elements and the functions which we perform over those elements, right? So we have pages, and this pages will have elements plus functions which we will perform for over the pages or particular elements. So we are doing this thing, and it is maintainable because whenever we are creating a new test case, we go to a particular test class and we keep on adding our test cases. And for executing it, we run it on local also. So we have property files where we mention that where we have to execute it, or config file where we are keeping our test data also, sometimes credentials also. So from here we are picking what environment I have to execute. So based on that, and what browser I have to execute it, right? So there we maintain all the details. Based on that, it is executing, and we have a test ng report which we can email to stakeholders. So this is like basic structure of our automation framework. Now, if they ask about how you are managing your API testing and all, right? So then you can again explain that. Uh, for UI automation, we are keeping a folder structure separately, and for the API testing, we are using REST assured um, for the test automation. Generally, what we do is we test it manually first, and then once everything is working manually in the Postman, we convert those cases to rest assured cases. So we are using rest assured related APIs to work on the API testing. It's same like um, hitting the HTTP request and getting the response, and based on the response, we are checking, whether the response code is working, coming correctly, and we are checking whether the response time is not greater than 10 seconds for some of the APIs, those things. But still, we are using TestNG only for the assertion part, but that execution is separate from the UI automation. We have a separate testng file which executes only API cases. It's like this. And correspondingly, we have different job in the Jenkins to just execute the API related test suite. Okay. Let's go to some other question. About previous project. So somebody will ask you how you worked on your automation framework in your previous projects. So same thing, whatever you have worked on, you should explain it, right? It's like this. What framework you used? So you can explain that what kind of framework it was, right? So you can say page object model based, right? And it's more of hybrid framework where keyword and data driven both kind of framework we used, right? That's it. And you can explain about other tools and techniques which you are using in your framework. It's like this. Did you use TDD or BDD? This question is logically wrong. Okay, this question is logically wrong, but interviewer is asking this, asking that because they also sometimes don't know about the TD and BDD in detail. Let's understand this. TDD and BDD are development approach. It's not testing approach. I am repeating it. TDD and BDD is development approach. Now you can say to comply or to work with TDD, we have a particular kind of framework. So for example, to support, I will say to support BDD development, we have Cucumber framework. But let's understand, you cannot mix it. It doesn't mean BDD means Cucumber or Cucumber means BDD. BDD is entirely independent concept, which says that you have to get your user stories in a user behavior pattern, right? There is a particular jerkin way of getting the user stories, right? That is nothing to do with Cucumber. The thing is, you can convert those stories or the steps, to work in the Cucumber test automation framework, right? So that's a different thing. Okay. So if they ask whether you have worked on TD or TDD or BDD, if you have worked on the BDD, you should explain, yes, I worked on the BDD part and we have used Cucumber to support BDD. It's like this. TDD is test-driven development. Read about it, guys, right? So test-driven development is a kind of development approach where test cases are discussed first even before writing the development code. Okay, so test cases are decided first, then developers write the code based on the test cases, and then they develop the code, and then after that we execute those test cases to prove that code is working fine, right? So read about it. Okay. Reporting mechanism. Yes. So if they ask what is your reporting mechanism, you should explain it, whatever reporting you're using, whether you're using Mocha Awesome, or you're using TestNG report, or you're using Cucumber HTML reports. You should explain what kind of report you're using technically, and then you should explain how you are sending this report to someone, right? So you have to explain that once we execute it, we send it through mail, right? And this is automated through the Jenkins job, through email extension, right? Um, with So I'm just giving an example, right? You have to check how you are doing it in your company, right? You should not lie. Whatever you're using, you should say. Okay. And if somebody asks end-to-end data flow of framework, this is a good question. So end-to-end data flow is, they want to know how your execution starts. So you should say that we have testng. Testng comprises of test classes, which I want to execute, right? Or test suite. There we mentioned the test suite. Let me write it properly. Suite. Test suite has test classes. Test classes has test cases, and in the test cases we may, so now we are talking about the test case level. In the test case level, we get data from data provider methods. Okay, you can, if you are doing it in this way, you can explain, right? And then once the execution is done, we get the report. So this is how we are working. Or you can explain that in the data provider method, we connect to our Excel sheet using Apache POI libraries, and we get the test data from there, and we use it in our test cases. That's it. So this is how our end-to-end flow, but about technically about executing the test case. But end-to-end flow, if somebody is asked, this picture is also good, where you can explain that this is happening, it's going to the second level, third level, we are doing this thing, it's like this. Okay, that's it about automation framework part.